I like to call people what they like to be called. So Anthony Millay is the president of AMI Global Security. I'm assuming Anthony Millay International Global. That's just my assumption. Global Security, and he has a very diverse record of military and intel and security. He's done work for other countries, for Saudi and other countries. He's a graduate of Defense Intelligence College and with an MA in diplomacy and international conflict. What he does is he trains people, and I apologize for my voice. I have Trans-Pacific travel voice. That's what we call it. Just got off yesterday. So, and he is a registered firearms dealer, which I would like to know more about that. But he's also, I've heard him speak. Another thing is he's also a values person. He's also a person who he knows how to stand his ground, but also knows, also is a man of peace. So, and I think he takes that seriously. He's been decorated for valor and many things. He now is a consultant. He teaches, he trains trainers. He teaches people how to teach people in counterterrorism and security. I hope I'm getting this right, but I was very impressed, Anthony, by your curriculum vitae and what you do. And you have Firearms Academy, so you teach people from the ground up. So I'm very happy to meet you. Very glad to meet you. And I heard you speak before, so I was really looking forward to having you here. So Anthony Millay, I'm going to turn this over to you and let you say some things, and then I guess we'll invite people for questions and we'll get a discussion going.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for that introduction. After such an introduction, I'm looking forward to hear from that speaker also. Let me know when he gets here.
Okay.
But again, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate the link that was sent to me shortly. I'm here in my office, so I had to clear a few things up before I can get online with you. As I'm preparing for, actually, I'm getting ready for travel to Bulgaria. And so, yeah, so my background, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I became involved with the Universal Peace Federation through our good friend, rest in peace, Maria. And I was designated also an ambassador for peace and invited to speak with much of your group several times. Yeah, my background is in security, counterterrorism, and yeah, I hold master's degrees in diplomacy and conflict management, as well as in international relations and counterterrorism. My specialty in the Army was I worked in the intelligence services, as well as the U.S. Army infantry. So I'm pretty much well-traveled as an international consultant as AMI Global Security. And so I contract with foreign governments on issues of defense articles and protection. I've also been involved with ridding communities of drug dealers, and even helped with negotiating a truce between conflicting gang members in the community. And so I think that some of those principles can be applied to our communities to help stabilize, diffuse, de-escalate, and help defend our communities, especially in light of what's been going on lately, especially here in New York. So I'm open to questions if you have any, and to help that may address a specific situation that a community may be confronting, or in general terms on how to help reduce and de-escalate, the rising issues of crime, and especially what our young people are facing in today's culture. So with that, I'll open up the floor.
Okay. Anybody can put something in the chat. And this topic is violence in the school and the decrease of moral values, I think, if I get that correctly.
Sure.
I have a question about that. There seems to be a huge decline in the state of mental health in the community. And I can pinpoint, I mean, we all have our theory, the internet or different causes or what is that, but what do you see as being the central problem with the degeneration of values?
Well, Larry, that's a very good question. You nailed it on the head, and that's a good way to open it up. So let's address it bluntly, because 50% of the solution is understanding what the problem is. And so if we run away from the problem or misdiagnose the problem, we're not going to have the right treatment, right? So if you go to the dentist for a toothache and he says, let me examine your feet may feel better, but it's doing nothing about your toothache. So we need to really address it. And so there's a formula for addressing these type of things. So much of it is physics, right? So to move an unmovable heavy object, right, requires fulcrum and a lever in the right place.
Right.
So if you have a fulcrum and lever in the right place, you can move what would seem to be an unmovable object. So what we find today that's different from, let's say, in the past, now, in a myriad of things within the culture, but one thing for sure is pharmaceuticals. How much misdiagnosis do we have for children who might be a little hyper or energetic and automatically say that they have, just give them a diagnosis with a couple of letters, or you have ADHD, ADHD, and then, okay, let's give this kid this cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs. So what kind of impact is that having? Then today also we have people smoking weed and taking drugs, illicit drugs off the streets, the fentanyl and everything else like that. So they're taking these psychotic inducing drugs. So if you're smoking psychotic inducing drugs, why are you surprised when as a result you have psychotic behavior, pushing people in front of trains and poor judgments and everything else that goes with it. So what is the impact of it? Why, when some violence may happen, automatically the diagnosis is, oh, it's because of the inanimate object, the firearm, the weapon, but no one addresses, were they under the influence of anything other than oxygen? Were they in a gang war fighting over drugs? Were they underneath the influence of drugs? How long have they been the influence of drugs? How long they've been taking these drugs? What's the long-term psychological and psychotic pathology that occurs? For instance, every TV commercial that you watch, when they put out some pharmaceutical a new drug out there, right? They have the cartoon of the lady running through the fields of lilies and daisies with rainbows and unicorns. Right? It's wonderful. And then comes the little disclaimer, says, well, if you feel like suicide, if you want to kill your spouse, if you want to jump off a bridge, or if you feel psychotic, like you want to commit psychotic murder, stop taking it.
Yeah. The side effects are huge on some of these advertisements.
Correct. So question mark, can that have something to do with it when it's out here, being distributed by the millions? Maybe. Every time we find one of these school shooters, or anytime we find one of these situations occurring, the common denominator is that there's some kind of, obviously is a psychotic and sociopathic behavior, but there's never a study or a revelation of what were they being treated with. The Newtown shooter, right? He had a long history of psychosis. This last thing in Uvalde, long history of psychotic behavior. What were the influence under? So if we don't want to address that, perhaps that the side effects of some of these pharmaceuticals are helping to, in a mixture, in a cocktail of the desensitization to violence and violent video games and violence in media and violence in musical entertainment genre, that this has no influence whatsoever. That the only thing that's influencing them is that they see a firearm and decide to pick it up and commit mass murder. That's it. No, nothing to see here. Let's move along. So it's a disservice to everyone if we don't address what the underlying causes may be, so that way we can address them.
What is how much do video games desensitize young people to?
Well, if millions of dollars are spent not only on the games, but on these simulators, law enforcement, soldiers, security personnel, people like myself are trained how to respond in these simulators as the closest thing to real world combat or real world exchange of close quarter combat without actually being in it. So if you notice, a lot of these young minds are engaged in these games together for hours and hours on end. And it's quite graphic. It's bloody. It's and they're there's an exchange, between them. Yeah. And they're using different firearms in these simulators. There's blood splatter in these simulators, and they're continuously doing it for hours and hours and hours. Is it not possible that this has an impact on their psyche?
Yeah. Regarding marijuana, I understand the the potency is exponentially higher than it was when I was in college in the 70s. And back then there were people who smoked it every day, and I could see the psychosis creeping into their behavior. Sure. But today it seems like it's one hit and you're up there for 8 hours.
Well, because obviously, but if you walk through the city and you can smell it on the street, the smell sticks to your clothes. It doesn't smell like it's organic weed. It has a chemical smell to it. So, and the word on the street is that it's obviously laced with some kind of chemistry, some kind of chemical mix. And so the potency, and not to mention that the genetics of it and the development of it, the THC potency of it is extremely stronger, and it's creating a psychotic behavior. And not only that, but now with the legalization thereof as a gateway, it now is a free reign on the streets for other things like methamphetamines and heroin. Heroin is a big comeback. Cocaine's a big comeback. There's a place in Spanish Harlem now, on 122nd Street between 3rd and Lex, that this few block area has been nicknamed Zombie Land. Zombie Land. Spanish Harlem, Zombie Land. Why? Because the people, the addicts there look and behave as if they are zombies with this vapid, blank look in their eyes. And they're walking around as, completely underneath this influence of these drugs. And then obviously the crime that follows. Mm-hmm. And why is this permitted? Well, sometimes law enforcement decides that we'll contain the behavior and behave the drug dealing and the criminal behavior in this particular area, because that way we know where it's at. If we chase it from there, then it'll just go someplace else. So we'd rather keep it in the ghetto and keep it in this particular area than for it to spread anywhere else.
Right. How is there an effect on the second, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you smell people smoking dope, is there an effect on the casual person walking through? Is there a danger, or is it just kind of negligible?
I don't know. Speaking for myself, when I walk through that block, by the time I get to the end of the block, I'm terrified and hungry at the same time. So I don't know why.
Well, I know that. Okay. Uh, if you work with the decline of moral values, this came from Bill Stoner. Uh, how do you what steps do you take to increase or improve moral values? It seems like we're swimming upstream. When I think about stopping these things, you've got so many people that are complicit with the video games, complicit with smoke and dope, with the porn, with everything. So how do you increase an awareness or a desire on the part of people? That, I guess that's my question. How do you increase a desire on the part of people to improve the quality of their values?
Well, sir, until it becomes economically viable and a way to become rich by instilling chivalry, the restoration of chivalry and moral values, and separating right from wrong through media, movies, music lyrics. The music lyrics we hear now, my grandmother would have washed my mouth out with soap.
Yeah.
With soap.
Yeah.
If she were to hear me repeating some of the lyrics that are passing for music. So the thing is that each one teach one, each one reach one. It has to happen at the individual basis, at the family level, and at the peer group level. Until you can make a ton of money making music that is positive, uplifting, and teaches a moral value, this will continue. So it has to become non-profitable. The same way how we used to move drug dealers out of communities. The way I teach how to move drug dealers out of communities is a bit unconventional. It's a bit unconventional, but again, it applies the science of the physics, the science of the fulcrum and the lever and force. How do we do it? Anything less than an armed police raid in a bloody shootout or a bulldozer would not move them out of these buildings and out of these edifices, because the seller needs to be in close proximity to their addicted buyers, and the addicted buyers have to be around where they can just prey on easy targets to steal money from them so they can buy their drugs and continue this vicious cycle. The police don't want to get involved because, especially now, it's a revolving door. They go in, they come right back out again. And secondly, it's like the physics of the partially filled balloon. If you put pressure on one end of the balloon, it just bulges out on the other. So if you put pressure on this neighborhood, all they're going to do is show up somewhere else. So how do you reverse this? Well, you have to be able to turn around and separate the buyer from the seller. The seller needs the buyer needs the seller. If you remove one from the occasion, right, or move one away from the occasion, the other will follow. If you move the seller, the buyer will follow. If you move the buyer, the seller will follow. And that's the mechanics of it. So when we turn around and create tactical operations plans that would diminish one from the other, then we have expelled them from that particular neighborhood. So in one instance, we had grandmothers park themselves with a table with lemonade and cookies on it right on the corner of the hottest crack dealing area in the neighborhood. And then when buyers would try to come around, they would be scolding them, saying, "Hey, I know you. Does your mama know you're here? Does your grandma know you're here? You better go home now, son." You see? And if the drug dealers try anything to coerce or intimidate them, first of all, at that age, they're a bit fearless. Also, if they tried anything, they would really make the place hot and destroy it. And when the police were notified that these elderly grandmas were out there giving away free lemonade and cookies, they were obliged to at least park themselves across the street and keep an eye on them. So now we took an area where it used to be cool to deal and sell and buy, and made it hot. Now it was undesirable to deal and sell and buy.
Got it. Then, but doesn't it, like the balloon, move on to another area, move 2 blocks
and you do
over?
it again.
You do it over.
and do it again.
The grandmothers and the cookies. Who would have thought?
Can I add a comment? Hi. You know, there is, I'm an evangelist. I speak to lots of young people in the street, and they tell me, I ask them, oh, what would you like to do? And they tell me, oh, I want to make a video game. God knows how many kids, I ask them what you would like to do with your life. They say, well, I want to make a video game. This obsession of young people with video game. There is a passage, it says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Christ to the pulling down of a stronghold, casting down imagination. You know, imagination are strongly emphasized. And every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. You know, when the companies play around with the imagination of young people and the thought of young people, imagination, you know, it is no wonder that it says, if you hate your neighbor in your heart, you already committed murder. If you lust after a man or a woman in your heart, you already committed adultery. So imagination and thought are extremely important, because eventually it comes into action. And when we have this video game, the point is that how to really nurture and educate young people at home so that they will have a buffer when they go out in the street. So again, emphasis on starting from the family, how each family can truly educate their children, sit together with their kids, teach them the ways of God, so the morality will be installed in them, so they know how to protect, how to really when the thought comes, when the imagination comes, how they can think. I ask the kids, why don't you create for example, games that are promote goodness, that promotes moral value than violence and
They
killing.
don't sell.
Huh?
They don't sell.
You will be amazed. We don't offer it. If you offer it to some degree, some people, I know the Christian community around here, they will definitely buy it, but it's not in the market. If we offer something to the market, you know, I use my artwork, I'm an artist. I use my artwork, I combine them with the scripture. You won't believe how the community, Christian community, buy that from me.
Yes,
so if we
but
offer
Reverend
certain
Devati,
product,
the Christian community is not the problem.
Yeah, because it's not the Christian community who's shooting up schools.
They're not the problem. Anthony, I have a question. Last time you were here, you talked about protocol during school lockdowns.
Yeah.
And how we need to rethink the protocol, and you looked at Uvalde. I'm sure there are people in Uvalde who will never forgive themselves for what happened. There was one officer who was waiting to go in, and while he was waiting, his granddaughter was killed. Just things that are unspeakable. I would just, my mind, it would destroy my mind. Has there been, as a result of this, do you see a groundswell? Do you see any improvement?
I've been invited to speak to some particular groups, and then just as quickly uninvited, because no one wants to be held culpable, because when you study it underneath the prism of the optics and the line of thought that I present, which is only an observation, then it immediately reveals that they were wrong, they've been wrong, and they don't want to be proven wrong, because then they would be held responsible. So therefore, it's easier to shift blame on the firearm. I know how to stop drunk driving. Let's eliminate drunk cars. Yeah. So, so their response is wrong. So when we analyze what happened, and I provided the study to Reverend Oliver, and I'll try to share it with all of you as well. The bottom line is that Run, Hide, Fight has been the result of a study between myself and colleagues from around the country. And so the thing is that we have to turn around and deal with the problem in the moment. We can't philosophize and evangelize, all right, in the middle of the shootout. pretty please don't shoot me may work.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but not so much. So we have to turn around and teach and drill our teachers and the children self-preservation and such, right? So
Yeah.
so when Noah was warned of the flood, he had a really big boat. How
Yeah.
come only 8 people were on board? You know why?
Full of
Because
animals.
someone had a great idea and said, okay, great. Look, we don't have to change our behavior. We'll
Yeah.
just and build a boat. We'll just sell umbrellas.
Yeah.
Sarcasm. But
No, it's a very good point.
but what
Very
I'm
good
saying
point.
is someone thought that, okay, great, we're going to the umbrella business. See, instead of selling cruise line tickets. And so they can just continue going on what they want and just hide underneath an umbrella. So you see, so it's a false narrative.
Uh-huh.
If a psychotic sociopath who's on an intent on murder in a building, it does not make any kind of logical sense to teach everyone to stay within close proximity and lock themselves in with the threat and the danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a much better idea to remove yourself from the danger as fast and as far as possible.
I completely agree. I would tell the kids to run like hell, and I would start dropping them out the windows or whatever.
Whatever it takes. Look, pretty much when I remember running the 100-yard dash, children could pretty much run the 100-yard dash in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
20 seconds, even 30 seconds.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that within a fraction of a minute, the children can be 100 yards away from the danger.
Yeah.
Okay, or as far away from the danger as possible. Why
Yeah.
aren't we teaching them that that's what it should be done? When duck hunters shoot at ducks, ducks do not gather and together and group together underneath a bush and say, shh, be very quiet. When they're shot at, they scatter in every direction. Okay, now how much more smarter are we than ducks?
Right. I agree.
You're obviously not as smart.
Well, that's why I get uninvited and my team gets uninvited to many of these forums.
You mean they
Because-
invite you and they say, okay, you're coming, and then they rethink it. And before
Well,
you show up,
they
you're
see what
uninvited.
what the discussion, what we're going to discuss, and how we want to reprogram them and retrain them, and they don't want to take those steps.
I understand. Wow. What about, there's been talk of arming the teachers, and some places have taken that step of training the teachers.
Logic and experience tell us that the only one way to stop a shooter from shooting at you at the moment he's shooting at you is to shoot back.
Right. That
So-
brings me to another point. If you had complete, you had training and universal open carry, you can have a gun on your hip. I think there's some states that have that.
Mhm.
I don't know. what they
Wyoming.
are. Who does? Wyoming?
Sure,
Okay, what about Florida, Texas?
they're too civilized.
Too civilized. Okay, I grew up in Casper, Wyoming, partly, and so what is the track record? Has there been enough studies that people, if everybody's packing, nobody tries a shooting situation?
Well, on a one-on-one study, right? Anytime there has been an armed civilian in a situation where they can shoot back, lives were saved. The situation that happened in the church recently,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Where the guy pulled out the gun and began shooting in the church. Within 6 seconds, an armed parishioner returned fire and stopped them in 6 seconds.
yeah,
The average response time of police to a school shooting situation, the average response time is 600 seconds.
wow,
600 seconds. Now, if it only takes a quarter of a second, right, to a fraction of a second to pull a trigger and fire, depending on how much ammo they have, as bang, 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 600 times.
Yeah, yeah,
So using logic and using street smarts, which is what's been failing in most of the issues that we've been addressing, is the fact of street smarts, which is that if the this is the psychotic shooters. Imagine if we went up against a professional terrorist or professional team of terrorists, right?
Yeah.
We could be completely outclassed. So
Yeah.
the bottom line is that if just because a school shooter may be psychotic, they're not stupid. If he was
Yeah.
faced with two doors, and through door number one, there's the possibility of arm resistance, and in door number two, there's 100% chance of zero armed resistance. Which
Right.
door would he go through?
Number two.
Well, sometimes we got to answer our own question.
Yeah. This is kind of backing into Ray McCready's question. When I was growing up in Oklahoma, Texas, if you got a gun for Christmas, you took it to school.
That's right.
You took it to school in your trunk or your back in your car.
Show and tell.
Yeah, and you'd show it and you'd show everybody in the class, and here's my gun, and it's a 22, or it's a deer rifle or something like that. Those days are so over. Although what Ray says is Americans so value their freedom and resist putting regulations on things such as violent media, video games, and they spend millions arming other places, but spend relatively little on physical, social, mental health of children and youth in America. It seems that we have to accept a continuation of the current trend. That's what he's thinking. How to accept it? How do we accept a continuation of the current
let's
trend?
analyze. Let's use our intellect and analyze what we do know. And that's what I try to help people do. The best conclusions are the ones that you arrive at yourself. Okay, so we feed in the data and we come up with a conclusion. So everything that we do know, anywhere where there has been armed resistance, has more lives been saved or less? More lives. Anywhere where there's zero armed resistance, were there more victims killed? Yes. So the data indicates that armed resistance saves lives. That's the data. Now, why is there more evidence of psychosis and psychotics out here? We can go down the whole gambit between pharmaceuticals, behavior, lack of morals, lack of God, and lack of whatever. However, all of that becomes moot in the moment, in the day of the situation. So we had to be prepared on how to deal with the situation then and there. Every morning, all of these school shooters that we know of, every single morning, without missing a beat, the chances are they woke up that morning in their mind, am I going to shoot up this school today? Am I going to shoot up the school today? And each time, either the opportunity or the means, weren't there for them to do it. However, comes the morning when they decide that they're going to do it. We have no control of that. We have no control the day someone who's a sociopath or a psychopath is going to wake up that day and decide they're going to pick a soft target, right? And commit mass murder. All we can do is be prepared at this stage, is be prepared for it. And in that preparation, we have to be prepared to use lethal force if necessary, or have an escape plan. And in every one of these school shooting situations, there was no plan for resistance of lethal force, and there was zero escape plan. It was always lockdown, stay put every time. And what has been the result of each one of those situations? Disaster. So why keep using or performing the same policy and expect a different result? Why keep doing the same thing over and over again, thinking you're going to get a different result?
aren't these guys often known in the community? I mean, I've known some sociopathic individuals that would be on my short list of people to go postal and do something. They didn't, but aren't these people often, I mean, isn't often the case that nobody's really surprised that a certain person?
Yeah, most times, and you're correct, sir. Most times after the fact, everyone said, yeah, it was a matter of time before that person was going to do that. So it's like the ticking time bomb scenario. Okay. Now we have no idea when it's going to go off, where it's going to go off, or where it's planted. All we can do is be prepared for it. So we don't have to turn around and make our schools like going to an airport or an armed camp. I don't believe in the magnetometers and the searches and the this and creating all that kind of thing in the school learning environment. What I do believe in is that there are methods to identify this, this type of behavior, and God forbid, should it occur, every individual in the place who's been well trained and well drilled on how to evacuate, just the same way as if it was a fire drill. If there's a fire in the school, are you taught to turn around and lock the door, stay in the classroom and in the smoke-filled building and wait for the firemen to arrive? Or are you taught to get out as fast as possible, as far away as possible? Can you imagine? Can you imagine the school that says, okay, look, we have a blazing fire here, and what I want you children to do, and I want you school teachers to keep the children in the room and in the building with the fire and lock the doors. Sounds good?
Yeah.
That's the plan? Cool. That's the plan. Then after the fire, what happens? Everyone's dead.
Yeah.
Everyone's dead.
Has there been any school that has not uninvited you once they invite you? Has there anybody that's heard your story and heard your plan?
I get invited to forums that include emergency services, medical emergency services, detective responders, first responders. Many of them contact me privately on the side for more training. One particular place in Westchester, the school superintendent got up and walked out.
Yeah.
Got up and walked out rather than ask questions or confront it or deal with it. But why? Because rather than face the reality, because if you enter I'm a security professional. Let's say I'm a bodyguard. If I turn around and bring and go with my principal, who I'm protecting, in a delusional state. See, don't worry, boss. Let's go here in the middle of a hotly armed camp, and everything's going to be fine. Let me go where I'm completely outnumbered. Everything's going to be fine. If I take a delusional step, an unrealistic approach, I'm going to have a very bad result. So why are we suspending common sense? Why are we suspending logic, right, to fit a narrative?
Yeah.
Because no one wants to talk about that. The cause may be pharmaceuticals. The cause may be cultural. The cause may be lack of, all down the list, the narrative list. No one wants to take responsibility of that. It's much easier to blame the inanimate object of the firearm and the deep pockets of the manufacturer for lawsuits than it is to go after, let's say, the pharmaceutical companies who create all these side effects, or the schools who actually train high degree individuals, people with bachelor's and master's degrees, and teach them to go intuitively against their own instincts of self-preservation. If I hear bang, 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 your natural response is to jet out of there. You have to resist all of your natural instincts to stay there, right? To stay there and sit there, to sit in the classroom while the classroom next door, you're hearing bang, 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 mommy, daddy, help me, help me, help me. and stay there and make the children stay there and wait for the psychopath to come to your room next.
Yeah. Yeah. It just is, I hope those days are totally over.
They're
One
not, sir.
gentleman wrote, "How do you decrease shootings in Black neighborhoods? Tactical strategies." I think you addressed that. You were talking about separating the buyers from the sellers and the grandmothers and the cookies.
Well, the
Is there
thing is
anything to
the
add to
formula,
that?
the formula is a matter of physics, right? So,
Yeah.
so how do you remove, you know, a lucrative trade, you know, where it's
Yeah.
lucrative, they're making a ton of money there. So you remove the ability for them to make money. And
Yeah.
then if I'm not making money there, they're gonna move on. They're gonna go somewhere else.
You make it hard to make money.
That's right. So that's the mechanics of it. The mechanics
Wow.
of it is if they can't, what another tactic. There's not a one size fits all, but I'll give you an example. In the Bronx, in the South Bronx, where I grew up, in the area that's known as Fort Apache, one of the toughest areas of the Bronx back in my day.
Been there. Yeah.
Okay, back in my day, in 163rd. Now,
Yeah.
what I did was I was hired by the owner or the director of a drug rehabilitation center that was being built there to help, you know, recovering addicts. However, that's like putting a chocolate factory, next to a weight loss prevention program.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
so
diabetic.
what, you
ward.
know, so the thing was,
Yeah.
this was the hottest area of crack dealing in the Bronx.
Yeah.
The police, I remember, told me something like $1 million, you know, they were making there in this area. So what I did was I went up to the roof of the building that was being renovated for the rehab, and I kind of watched how the operation occurred. So in short term, let me show you how sophisticated it was. What they do was they would gather up at a bus stop and they would line up like they're waiting for the bus. The
Mhm.
dealer would go to each one and take their money. A taxi cab, after a little while, a taxi cab will come up. He would throw the bag with the money in there and he would give them another bag, and then he would go down the line and distribute each one of their bag of crack, and off they go to go use it.
And he would exchange the little pouches of crack for money and then put the filled duffel bag.
So picture, I'm watching from the roof, right? We're all up on the roof. We're watching down at the corner. They're at a bus stop on a queue, all lined up, very organized, like they're waiting for the bus.
Yeah.
He will go down the line, take each of their money, put it in a paper bag, holding it like lunch. After a while, a taxi cab will pull up to the bus stop. The dealer would walk up to the cab, put the paper bag of money in the front seat, and at the same time exchange it. He would get another bag with all of the bags of crack vial, and then hand it to each one of the people, and then they will disperse and go do their drugs, and it will occur over and over again.
Wow.
The next day, when they were all lined up out there, I had my partner up on the roof and we had radios. I was all up in a suit and tie, looking very official. I walked right up into the corner, right up into where everyone was standing on line, got on the radio and turned the volume up so they can all hear. And then I would say, Mr. McCready, what color tie am I wearing? And you would say, okay, red and blue. Okay, great. Now pan the camera to the left. How many people you see? Oh, I see 7. What are they wearing? Oh, jeans, sneakers. Oh, great. Pan to the right. What can you read the license plate of the car in front of me? Yes, it's ABC 123. Terrific. Thank you. Beautiful. Everything focused. Good. It's all on record. Great. Thank you. And I turn around and said, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your help. I'll be out of your way now. And walked away. By the time I got back into the building and got up to the roof and looked down, poof, like roaches with when the light
Like
turns.
roaches when you turn on the light.
Roaches when you turn on the lights. Now, when they spread, what were they doing? They were telling everyone that corner's under surveillance. The FBI was there. The ATF was there. Everybody was there. You should have seen what happened to that. So we can't go there anymore. So now that the buyers are gone, sellers are gone.
Yeah. Great tactic. I hope that answers Gil Pagan's question. One more before we end this. Your analysis reminded one of our viewers of life in Israel, where citizens are all well aware or I remember being in Israel, I'd see these beautiful women walking around armed to the teeth with
ARs
ARs,
or
yeah,
M4s.
yeah, and or Uzis, and I understand that in Switzerland as well, everybody's required to keep a rifle or an automatic under their bed or in their closet, and everybody's deputized. So I think I wouldn't go start a shootout in Israel, for example.
No, we need to adopt the idea that self-preservation, we don't need permission to protect our family, protect our home, and protect our life. I don't need permission for that. The Constitution guarantees it. And so therefore, the same, how come we're not teaching, as you said, good morals, chivalry, or firearms training? Therefore, you give respect for that. Believe me, if we gave kids more firearms training, more martial arts training, more physical control, it would create self-discipline, and there would be less violence. There would be less attacks. There'll be less bullying.
Yeah.
There'll be less shootouts.
Yep.
That's the fact of the matter. That is the fact of the matter. And until we readopt some of these principles, it's not going to happen. I know it goes against maybe some of our conditioning and such, but it's the fact of the matter, you know. And I even refer to scripture. You know, they tried to attribute that Jesus was a pacifist, and he who lives by the sword dies by the sword means to be unarmed and a pacifist. That's not what he meant. It's taken out of context. When Peter cut off Malchus's ear in the garden, and Jesus, bent down, picked up the ear and reattached it, is when he told Peter, put your sword away. Who lives by the sword dies by the sword. He was talking about the Romans.
Yeah.
See, he was talking about them. Okay. And so, and prophesying what would happen to them. So, we have to put things in context. He never said be a pacifist. He never said surrender.
Yeah, he told people to take a sword with him.
That's right. He said, how many of you have a sword? Okay, we have 2. That's enough. He said, take with you your sandals, your scripts, and if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, we have to turn around and reapply logic, common sense, self-discipline, and these things. How come there are some communities, just because there is a high abundance of narcotics doesn't mean you would take it. You're going to have a high abundance of rat poison.
Yeah.
You're going to take it?
Yeah.
No, because it's romanticized and it's pushed on lucratively. There's many communities that do not imbibe in alcohol and narcotics and everything else like this, because they have a good moral and chivalric foundation. It's not impossible. We can revive that. We can put that back in.
Yeah.
We can restore that. But we have to have the will to do it.
Yeah. I'm reminded of something Reverend Moon said one time. He said, always try to avoid violence. But he said, if you can't, be successful. And I think that's something you could agree with. Our guest today has been Anthony Millay. This has been a thoroughly interesting hour. You have a lot of experience. I hope the people that invite you to speak at the schools will, I hope they'll grow a pair and keep you on the agenda. And because what you have is very important. What you have is really important to say if we're going to stop the senselessness, especially the idea of sitting in place waiting for somebody to come shoot you. Thank you, Tony. It was great to talk with you. And we look forward to having you back again. We'll have to, because Bruce Sucher had his hand up and I don't have time to get to his question, but we will later. Bruce, and we'll have you back again.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you
can
so
share
much.
my email with everyone and they can email me questions and I'll be happy to respond individually.
Yes, his email is Tony@amiglobalsecurity.com. Tony@amiglobalsecurity.com. Maybe somebody write that in the, I'm temporarily typing impaired, but somebody write that in the chat. Tony@amiglobalsecurity.com. It's a great man. Thank you so much. And thank all of you. God bless you, and everybody have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'm putting it in chat now. Thank you.
Okay. Check it in chat right now.
I think I typed it in right. Thank you everyone for your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye,
so much.
everybody.
Bye now.
Yeah, have a great one.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Woo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great program,
Thank
great
you.
program. Good to see you, Tony from New York. Really good.
Thanks
stuff.
so much, everyone. Yeah,
EJ, you
just send me
can-
an email and I'll try to respond to you as best as I can.
Okay. EJ,
Very
you can
good.
sign us off. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.